Hello, I'm Sheryl McCarthy of the City University of New York. Welcome to One to One. Each week, we address issues of timely and timeless concern with newsmakers and the journalists who report on them, artists, scientists, educators, social scientists, government leaders, politicians, all are one-to-one. Today, I'm delighted to welcome educator Deborah Bial to the program. She's the founder and president of the Posse Foundation, which brings about unique learning opportunities for teenagers, and the results have been spectacular. Dr. Bial was awarded a MacArthur Genius Grant in 2007 for her pioneering work in creating a way for high school students to achieve success at some of the leading colleges in the country. We'll talk about the program and what inspired it. Welcome.
Thank you.
So tell us about the Posse Foundation, what it does, how it got started, and how you got your name.
Right. Actually, that's the easiest place to start, how we got our name. Posse is kind of an unusual name for a program, but the program started back in 1989, and this is a true story, when one student said he never would have dropped out of college if he had had his posse with him. Right, and we nodded too. What a great idea! Why not send a posse or a team of students together to college so they could
somebody could get your back.
Right, exactly. Exactly. And at the time, posse was a little bit more of a hip word in the youth culture than it is today, but the concept really stuck. And today, you know, posse has become one of the leading and most comprehensive college access and leadership development programs for young people in the country.
And tell us exactly
what it is.
What it is.
Okay. So what Posse is doing is expanding the pool from which the top colleges and universities in this country can recruit students. Everybody wants the kid from Bed-Stuy, you know, who has 1,600 on her SATs. But we know there's a limited number of those students to go around. And when you're looking to create a really diverse student body at schools like Vanderbilt and Wheaton, you need to figure out some ways to get the great kids who might be missed. And that's what Posse does. We find great kids from public schools in big urban centers in the United States, and we connect them to the top colleges in the country.
So when you say great kids, what are sort of different from the normal kid who might go to those schools? What characteristics are we talking about?
We're looking for outstanding leaders, right?
Okay.
Young people who've shown tremendous leadership potential and who can really shape the face of leadership of our country. The big punchline of Posse is that we're creating a new kind of professional leadership network in the United States, one that this country has never seen in its entire history. I think by the year 2020, Posse will have between 5,000 and 7,000 alumni in the workforce. Think about that, right? So these kids have grown up in Chicago and Boston and Atlanta and New York City, but they'll have gone to Brandeis and Bryn Mawr and Hamilton, and they will be doctors and lawyers and teachers and politicians, and they'll represent the true diversity of the United States. That's, to me, is so exciting.
So basically, you put together a posse of 10 students, all from the same city,
right?
And prepare them to go to a particular college or university.
Right.
Did it start in New York?
It did. It started here in New York City.
Okay. Who are the earliest supporters of the program?
You know, the earliest supporters were the Kellogg Foundation and the Rockefeller Foundation, and also the College Board, which some people, if you know what the College Board does, right, they're best known for the SAT, right? And here's yet an alternative way of identifying students that doesn't really use the SAT. But they were one of our biggest supporters in the beginning. We had no office space, we had nothing, and they gave us office space, and they acted as a fiscal agent for us, and they helped us get our feet on the ground.
So how did you approach the first colleges and universities? What was the pitch, and how did you get them to come on board?
That's a great question. Our first school was Vanderbilt University.
Okay.
You're from the South, right? So Vanderbilt's in Nashville, Tennessee. And it was historically a very white, Southern, wealthy institution, very traditional. And at the time, there was a professor named Terry Deal who worked there, and he was a superstar on their campus. And we talked to him about the idea, and he loved the idea. Vanderbilt really wanted to diversify its student body and was having some trouble recruiting kids, and once they were recruiting those students, they weren't keeping them. So they took a chance on this idea, which was just an idea. We had no track record or anything. And it worked. So some of the numbers, which might be interesting to some of your viewers, are that since 1989, we've sent 2,200 students to college. They've won $220 million in leadership scholarships from our partner schools like Vanderbilt.
Right, right.
They're graduating at a rate of 90%, and they're incredible leaders on their campuses and now out in the workforce.
How many do you have at colleges right now? Do you know what the total number is?
I knew you were going to ask me that question. So we have about 1,200 students currently enrolled in college right now.
Mm-hmm. So tell me how the program works. I mean, my understanding is that you take students when they're in high school, the posse, would you have one posse per city in any year? And you work with, or more than one posse?
More than one posse.
Okay. And you have an 8-month preparatory period for them while they're in high school? Mm-hmm. Tell me about that.
So the way it works, right now, what are we in November? We're in the middle of our recruitment season. So we have 4 program components. We have recruitment, called the dynamic assessment process. We have an 8-month pre-collegiate training program, which is what you're talking about. We have a 4-year campus program. So once students are on campus, we have a mentoring component and retreats and visits. And then we have a career program. Those are our 4 components. The recruitment process works like this. I'll use New York City as an example. We send out materials to all the high schools and community-based organizations, and teachers and guidance counselors and principals nominate students. Nationally this year in September, we had over 9,000 nominations for what will eventually be about 410 Posse slots. Wow. I know. It's actually heartbreaking, mm-hmm. right? Because we're turning mm-hmm. away so many kids. But in New York, there were 3,000 nominations.
Okay.
Okay. There are 130 available slots in New York City. That's 13
posses.
Yes, 13 posses for 13 different schools.
Okay.
And those kids come in, and we do a large group interview, we do an individual interview, and then we do a finalists meeting. So take, Brandeis as an example. Brandeis recruits a science posse, and they recruit a liberal arts posse every year from New York City. So they're taking 20 kids a year. You're with me on this? Okay. So what will happen is students will get literature on all of our schools, but they may identify Brandeis as a first choice school, right? So we will try to match students to their first choice. We then identify, as they go through the process, 20 finalists for each of the posses at Brandeis. Mm-hmm. And then Brandeis comes and picks 10 for each. Okay. That's how a posse gets picked. I can give you a lot more detail about it. It's actually an insane process.
It sounds like it.
There's, the large group interviews involve students building robots out of Legos, and they're running a discussion about genetic testing. Uh-huh. They're creating a 30-second public service announcement, and we are observing. So there's 100 students in the room doing this. Okay. And we're observing them for things like leadership ability and communication skills, ability to work well in a team. We're looking for a student who's going to stand out. And who might not show up through the traditional indicators that we see on paper.
So are we looking at your students? Are we finding, you talk about diversity, are we talking about more students of color, more lower income students, more immigrants? I don't know.
Right. So the first thing is that Posse is a leadership program, but it's also a diversity program. And I think in this country, the word diversity has somehow become a synonym for minority. Right. Well, at Posse, that's not what it's about. It's a true diversity program. We're saying to these institutions, we're going to help you make your student body more diverse. What does that mean? Yes, race, gender, class, religion, even politics. Every Posse is different, but you'll see kids from every kind of background in a Posse. Mm-hmm. By the year 2020, no, wrong year. By the year 2042, about half the American population will be people of color. And when you look at our institutions of higher education, especially the most selective institutions, we don't see representation of the real demographics of the country mm-hmm. in the student body. Right. And we don't always see a plan to get to where we need to be by that year. So Posse is saying we're going to help you figure out a way not just to change your statistics, not just to get more students of color into your freshman class, but to help change the climate of your campus so mm-hmm. that there's much more interaction and dialogue going on. It's one thing to change your statistics. It's another thing to change your campus climate. That's a much bigger task. By putting young people who understand kind of the the cultural dialogue and have been trained and who are tremendous leaders and who come from every background. By putting them on your campus, you begin to create what we call integrated diversity. It's really exciting, right? So you think about, you have 10 kids in each class at Wheaton, then you have 40 Posse scholars on your campus within 4 years, right? 10 in each class. And they're Jewish kids, and they're Pakistani kids, and they're Dominican kids, and they're kids from every background, right? One student, think about the white kid from Staten Island who joins a sorority, and Saturday night there's a party. And all she does, she's not even thinking about doing anything consciously, but she sends an email to the 39 other Posse scholars on that campus and says, come to this party and bring your friends. No big deal. But it is a big deal because suddenly the people that are coming to that sorority party look a lot different than historically they did.
Very interesting. Campus. Now, once you choose a Posse that's going to a particular college or university, what do you do with them for the next 8 months? So
for 8 months, they come once a week after school. Now I know I'm in my Posse with my 9 other Posse friends. And I come once a week after school for a 2 to 3 hour workshop. So I'm trained in leadership, in team building, in academic excellence, in how to become a catalyst for change in a community. So by the time those 8 months are over, imagine what that group is like. They know each other, they've talked about things that a lot of kids don't get to talk about: class, race, meritocracy. And then they go together to their college. So they act not only as a support system, but as a trigger for conversation on the campus.
Now, if a student doesn't necessarily get their first choice school, do they sometimes get the second choice?
Sometimes, yes. But about 95% of our students are matched to their first choice.
Okay.
It doesn't make much sense to send a student somewhere she doesn't want to go.
How about parental involvement? Is that a factor at all?
Yeah. There's the parental piece is much smaller at Posse, but there's a family meeting that we have every year. There's a summer event that we have. There's an awards ceremony once the students win the scholarships. But most of our interaction is with the student because it's all year long for 5 years.
Right. Yeah. We're going to have to take a short break. We'll be back with more with Dr. Deborah Bial, founder and president of the Posse Foundation, after this message.
If you could see plaque clogging your arteries, you'd floss them. If you could see a cramped heart muscle, you'd massage it. If you could see a blood clot, you'd wash it out. If you could see inside yourself, you'd talk to your doctor about heart disease. It's the #1 killer of women. Find out your risk and act now to lower it. The hard truth is, taking care of yourself starts from the inside out. To learn more, call this number.
Welcome back to One to One. I'm Sheryl McCarthy of the City University of New York, and I'm talking to Dr. Deborah Bial, founder and president of the Posse Foundation. Now, you have 32 colleges and universities that are currently partners. They have to make a pretty big investment in this, correct? Yeah. Do they have to pay for guarantee scholarships for all of the students? Are they full scholarships?
Full tuition, yeah.
Full tuition scholarships. And they pay, I'm understanding is they pay a fee to Posse to help cover your administrative costs?
They do,
okay.
The programmatic costs, yeah.
Okay. It seems like this might be something, that perhaps only the wealthier institutions could afford, correct? It's a big investment, right?
It's a major investment. So we have 32 partner colleges around the country, and they're investing, think about it, 10 full tuition scholarships per Posse per year. So once you've got 40 kids on your campus, that's 40 full tuition scholarships. Yep. So in that respect, the cost is significant. But I think if you talk to most of our institutions, they'll say not only is it well worth it, but it's probably much more cost effective than what they do anyway to recruit and retain students, especially from underrepresented backgrounds. So with a 90% graduation rate and these students going off to become superstar alumni in the workforce, it's almost an investment they can't afford not to make. And it might sound like a sales pitch, but it's not. We're trying to expand the number of partner colleges and universities we have to 80 by the year 2020. So we'd like more.
Now, In the interest of full disclosure, I had some interaction with Posse some years ago when I was a trustee of my undergraduate college, and they were trying to consider whether to bond with Posse. I mean, in the end, they decided, not to. But I gather, this is a small college, and the idea of, whereas they might take maybe 6 students from New York or wherever, maybe 10 was not in their admissions strategy, and it was a big investment. But I guess the question is, I was going to ask you, why do they need you to provide these services that sometimes they could do themselves, but maybe you said you do it better?
No, it's a great question. I think if you took any admissions dean, the admissions dean would say, oh, we would have picked these same students. These are it's not that Posse's invented some kind of new rocket science, right? It's not. We're doing what admissions deans would do if they could. But they do not have the luxury of going into all the city schools in the same way that Posse does. Think about it. We're in 6 cities: Atlanta, Boston, Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., and we're looking at Houston and Miami and Detroit and New Orleans. What we do is we anchor ourselves in one city, and we reach out to all of the public schools. A school like Vanderbilt can't go into every single of the more than 400 public high schools in New York City and find the superstars, but Posse can, because we live here and we work here, and we get to know those schools all year long. So what we're doing is we're finding young people that they need to find, but they cannot find themselves.
Now, when I went from Birmingham, Alabama, as a non-traditional student to a largely white women's college in Massachusetts years ago.
Which would be a great Posse partner.
Keep pitching.
I know.
The Posse model of sending, that you have this group of students who will sort of get your back. Now, it's an interesting idea, but I remember when I went off to Mount Holyoke, and there were a few. I had a friend from Birmingham was there, and there were other Birmingham students, maybe at Yale or this place around there, that I thought would have been my posse, who wound up not being my posse. And I mean, how do you know? I mean, you have these posses, but sometimes cliques form within groups, or they may not like each other. I mean, they may not wind up being friends.
Right.
Once they get there. I mean, I don't know. No,
I think I hear what you're saying. So one piece of that question is it's an artificial construction of a group.
Right.
How, do we assume they're all going to be friends? Absolutely not. They're there, in a sense, to do a job, right? And that job is to support each other and to graduate and to make a difference, right?
Okay.
So it's, if you joined a club, you're not going to like everybody in the club necessarily either. But you are responsible to the mission of the club.
And that's something you buy into from the beginning.
And you have to, right? Yeah. These students are winning a big award from this institution, and they know that, and they feel responsible towards the institution.
With the economy in such a tailspin, with college and university endowments having taken a hit, has this made your job tougher? Is there less financial commitment to diversity, or less financial ability to invest in it?
We don't know yet. We're looking at that just as every other nonprofit in this country is looking at that. So far, our university partners are so invested and so committed to this that we're in it together, so we plan to keep plowing ahead. But yeah, I'm worried about that. We lost Lehman Brothers. Lehman Brothers was a big supporter of Posse in many ways, not just financially. They took 52 interns every single summer at Lehman. And we lost it. They're gone altogether.
Yeah.
So, we constantly are looking to find support.
Tell me how, you talked about the 90% graduation rate, but tell me other things about how the Posse students do.
Okay, so you mean how are they involved and what do they...
Tell me all the great things.
All the great things. The awards they win. Things, they're really great pieces of information, like they've won 11 Fulbrights over the past 2 years alone. We have students who are I think that a recent study showed that 70% of our students who are on campus either start an organization themselves from scratch or become presidents of an existing organization. We have student government association presidents. They start gospel choirs. They run radio stations. They run for office, and they're unbelievably involved. And then they're out in the workforce doing really fabulous things.
Now, once they're at college, what is their continuing involvement with Posse?
Right.
Do you have a
Our
support?
staff visits them 3 or 4 times a year.
Right.
There's a mentoring program. We train mentors who are faculty members usually from
at
the college.
Okay.
They come to, imagine, you're the physics professor at, one of our DePauw University. You fly to New York, but so do professors and administrators from all 32 of our partner schools, and you meet each other. And then we run you through a 2 or 3 day training session in mentoring for Posse scholars. So we're building a community across campuses of professors, faculty members, and administrators. But we're also giving these mentors some information and some tools for how to go back and really be an active player in the diversity conversation on campus. Too often, we put all of our diversity initiatives under the one, director of multicultural affairs person on campus, or the vice president for institutional diversity. And those people are very important, but if they are the only people on those campuses responsible for thinking about it and owning it, then we're really not going to change these environments.
Yeah.
So Posse works with the institutions to do that.
Do the Posse scholars do they have regular meetings on campus?
They do.
Or?
Thanks for reminding me. They meet once a week with their mentor, every single week as a group. They meet with their mentor individually every other week. That's for the first 2 years on campus. We come and we run something called a Posse Plus retreat, where we bring all the Posse scholars together, plus students from the general student body, to talk about some hot topic, student-faculty relations, or the political campaign, that's going on, or is this really a meritocracy? Next year, our retreat is going to be focused on education. That's what the students want to talk about. So next year, we'll have 2,000 participants.
At the retreat?
At retreats across the country, not just Posse scholars, obviously. And they'll be focusing on this, and we run it.
You've said you'd like to expand the program.
Yeah, we would. You heard me say we're turning away thousands of students every year, so we would like more partner schools. Yeah.
You also have an internship program.
We do. We have a career program. So we partner with industry leaders, Goldman Sachs and the Museum of Natural History, and PricewaterhouseCoopers and Ernst & Young and MTV Networks, Comedy Central. They take Posse scholars as interns every summer. So we're not only working with the schools to think about these issues, we're working with companies to think about these issues too.
So in addition to their various internships they might get through their school, you have your own.
Yeah.
You won a MacArthur Grant last year. Now, congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, I don't know if that went to you, or if it went to Posse, or if it's being used for Posse in some way. I don't know.
Right.
But certainly it's a wonderful recognition of the work that you've done at the Posse Foundation. Your first graduates graduated in what year?
1993.
And are you still in touch with them?
Yes.
Are they?
All of them.
Oh, really?
Yes.
What are some of them doing?
Glad you asked.
Some of the first graduates.
Shirley, if she watches, she'll laugh that I'm using her as an example. But she was in the first Posse. She went to Vanderbilt. She graduated with honors. She was one of 7 students selected nationally from across the country to go into the clinical psychology doctoral program at Duke University. She got her doctorate there. She went on to teach. She was a professor in Washington. She then came in and was the executive vice president of the Posse Foundation, and then Middlebury College stole her from us, and she became part of the president's team at Middlebury. She's a vice president there. I think she's now moving to Lafayette College.
Wonderful.
She's amazing. They're all amazing. One of them's a principal of a high school in Staten Island. Another one does consulting and runs nonprofit for nonprofits across the country. They're phenomenal.
And how old would the first group be now? About what
Our
age
oldest, I guess, 37.
Okay.
Yeah.
It must make
Still
you,
young. Right.
must make you very proud. I would think so.
Oh, God. Yeah, it's an honor to know them.
And
still.
I haven't asked you what you were doing immediately before you started Posse. You were
I
in the
was
education
running
field?
youth leadership programs in public high schools in New York City through the City Kids Foundation at the time.
So it was a very natural transition.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we're out of time. If you'd like more information about Posse, check its website, www.possefoundation.org. My thanks to Dr. Deborah Bial, founder and president of the Posse Foundation, for joining me. For the City University of New York and One to One, I'm Sheryl McCarthy.